The other day at dawn, when I was on my way to check on my chickens, I crossed a young woman in the street. She was wearing office uniform and she was carrying her bag. And I couldn't help and notice her expression. It felt like she was fresh out of the university, and she had this expression in her face of high expectations, opportunities, hope, and joy. I couldn't help but wonder, will you have the same expression 20 years from now when you realize you still have at least another 20 until retirement? Around here is 67, the age of the retirement. I wonder if you have the same expression. We, when we are young, there's a different vitality to everything that we do. We make the impossible possible. The potential of young people is enormous. I tend to believe each one of us is a genius as a child. What happens is that genius is lobotomized in the first days in school. We are not meant, at least men, to be seated, hours on end. The reason they let us out for some minutes is to stretch our legs. You know, otherwise, the only reason they let us do it is otherwise we would explode. Forcing people to stay put and listen, regurgitate, be indoctrinated literally, is causing in children what they call hypertension, meaning they start having these tics that because they can't just stand still for that long, so they start developing these tics and these, you know, brain fogs and what's the other expression? Rumination and etc. Uh, we are not meant to be sitting like that as a child, listening and regurgitating. We should be outside, mixing fun with learning, running, climbing trees with learning. It should be, you know, that, what's the expression? Uh, I'm missing the words right now. It should be a mix, an hybridized mix of joy, play, exercise. We shouldn't, sit on a chair and just write. No, that's not how the way to go. Creativity is also destroyed because they don't want people who are creative and joyful. They want robots. I tend to think that the establishment are gatekeepers. They have something good going on. They have the system monopolized and controlled. Any new technology that dares show up that threatens their system is immediately shut down. The only technology that is allowed, is the one that benefits their, almost like an agriculture scheme. They are farming people, you know. So the potential of people, of children especially, is immense. Like I said, every children to me is a genius. And if we adapt, ways of teaching, different ways of teaching, instead of sitting down and listening, adapt them, children would learn 10 times faster. But of course, this would have the consequence of turning everybody into a free thinker, you know, a critical free thinker, and they don't want that. Little by little, there's people who become conscious of this, but not all. Most just go with the flow. Going with the flow is not a good thing. Um, Going with the current, is often the turds in the toilet or trash, that goes with the current. So we ought to go against the current, you know. Um, Homeschooling is an hypothesis. Homeschooling is the best way to go, in my opinion, and because you either do homeschooling or you do private schooling, but private is extremely expensive. It's not for all wallets. You see, in the public system, you have to march to someone else's rhythm. Everybody is put in the same rhythm. They either learn faster or slower, it doesn't matter. Everybody's put in the same rhythm, and everything's standardized, and it's almost like a communist. Everything is leveled. Everything is at the same level. So in the private system, it doesn't happen like that. In the private system, the ones who have potential, they no problem in going faster than anybody else. And some of these elites, they end up being politicians. They are like 40 years old and they are still finishing their university whatever bullshit. See, they really glow slow like a snail, because they have power, money, and they don't care, right? They spend 10 years or plus to finish their schooling in university, while everybody else has to go faster at someone else's pace. So not all of us is equal, right? And we all learn at different paces. That's what I'm trying to say. In the public system, everybody's forced to march at a certain rhythm. In the private system or at home, they can go at their own rhythm. So we're all different, we're all different, and some are will go faster than others. um, I know. Enough of that. um, I was listening to this presentation. Someone was making the case between some thoughts of a philosopher, some German philosopher, I think it was Nietzsche, and modern science regarding development of the frontal cortex. They were saying that if a person encounters, an obstacle during their lives that cripples them and doesn't kill them, but they survive, sometimes, suffering from, um, pain, um, chronic pain. They were suggesting that it is through this pain that some individuals actually, like, a worm that becomes a butterfly, would break the shell and become something different, because the pain forces the brain to seek an answer. Why is this pain existing? What's the purpose of this pain? So it rearranges the neurons in the frontal cortex, constantly trying to find an answer. And what used to be, an average person may become a genius after this process. You know, I wasn't buying this explanation because once you start mingling, German philosophers, I think it was Nietzsche, and I was like, I don't know. They were all about, these weird, ideas and philosophies and theories. But then I remembered Charles Proteus Steinmetz. He was a genius. Um, he was 100 plus years ago that actually gave the world that we have today, this modern world. He wrote huge, books and equations, and he was considered a wizard of engineering and electricity that nobody understands, his writings because it's so complex. And he had degenerative disease from birth that affected his spine, and maybe it was this constant, reminding, this constant pain that forced him to break the shell and become a genius. You know, I don't know. What I do know is when people go through hard times and they are forced to revalue their reality, to reawake, that a lot of good things come out of it. Not all the times, obviously, but good things come out of it. They realize they've been fooled. They realize they start being more curious about the nature of human culture, the nature of humans, the nature of the natural world in which we live in. It's funny. Everybody talks about the natural world like it's this beautiful, full of beautiful things. It is beautiful, but deadly as well. It is beautiful, but deadly. Yeah. A lot of people talk about, I'm going to live off grid. This is just an example. They don't go off grid at all. If they tried, they would probably starve in a couple of months. If they didn't starve, they would probably, be affected with some ailment that would force them to, you know, come back to civilization. We are not as tough as we used to be. This life of comfort that we've been living actually has turned us, into very weak, flappy, weak snowflakes, to be honest. People who still live in nature, they are tough. Yeah. So, anyway, I think I'm going to shut up now. Have a nice day.